Hey there, West Michigan meteorologist Will Haney here, and it is Wednesday night, May 7th, 2025. A date that definitely sticks out in the mind here in West Michigan. May 7th, right? The 1-year anniversary of a pretty significant little mini tornado outbreak, whatever you want to call it, last year. And definitely a night I'll never forget. Still very fresh in the memory bank, and as I'm sure it is for many of us. Of course, the weather this year, a lot tamer, and we do have some storms. There was this little cluster of storms that fired, as you can see there, up in Ionia County primarily. That continues to weaken. Not expecting anything severe tonight, but we may see just some additional spotty showers and thunderstorms through the early overnight. I think primarily there is a cold front dropping in. Good evening, Dan. I hope you're doing well. Thanks for tuning in. Let's take a little bit of a closer look, and just in case we have anyone watching a little farther north. So yeah, some decent little cells that worked their way through Ionia County, and this formed actually closer to about 7 o'clock. So persisted for a couple hours. If I look at radar estimated rainfall, let's see how long this takes to load. Sometimes this is a little laggy. You can see the areas that actually did see a little bit of rain from that little cluster of storms. Some of this is overlap. Let me here. I'm going to highlight actually the banner isn't going to change, but the data will. I'm going to change it to the last 12 hours. So you can see those areas of lime green up in Ionia County. It was a decent downpour. It looks like that's probably at least like a half an inch. Oh my gosh, if not way more than that. Holy moly. So radar estimates over 1.5 inches of rain. I don't know if that's legit because that's the radar estimate, but I would say somewhere north of 1 inch easily in pockets of Ionia County. So there were some winners depending on how you look at it tonight as far as the rainfall goes. Haven't seen too much elsewhere though. And we'll jump into satellite and radar here, kind of talk about what's going on. We've now lost obviously the daylight, and I need to change the satellite product on here because this was visible satellite, but there's a cold front actually working its way in from the northeast tonight. So some slightly cooler air returning, but if I were to draw that on there, it's right about there. Additionally, we had a little bit of a lake breeze that kind of acts as like a quasi cold front. And so the interaction of those two things tonight led to the development of that little pocket of storms. So that was kind of something we were talking about. These fired a little farther north, but this front's moving in from the northeast, which is why it's called a backdoor cold front. Typically we associate cold fronts with a generally west to east movement. So backdoor cold front just kind of describes cold fronts that kind of sneak in from the direction we're not really used to, the northeast. But then you also had this lake breeze coming in like this. Those both act to kind of generate a little surface convergence. So basically wind meeting at the surface, which then can't go into the ground, right? So it has to go up. And so that rising motion fueling a few of those thunderstorms. So not severe again, but they did produce some good rainfall like we were just looking at. All right. So I don't expect much additional activity. Those are fizzling out, but we'll watch for that front as it drops farther south into the overnight. We could see some additional pockets of brief downpours overnight. So looking ahead to tomorrow, we will see a little bit of clouds around from that front early, I think, but quickly trending sunny, and it will be a cooler day. So that is a cold front working its way in. So, today it was like t-shirts, shorts for sure. It's borderline warm, borderline hot when I was out working in the yard before work. And tomorrow will be like that refreshing, like light breeze, cool sunshine. So tomorrow a little bit cooler overall. And let me read through some comments. Happy hump day, Mikey. Jeanette, good evening in Coldwater. It was a whole lot nicer than a year ago. What's peculiar somewhat about last year, of course, we were touching on that to start. It was a pretty beautiful day. I do remember May 7th was a little bit breezy. It had a touch of humidity. I think we had highs, though, like in the upper 60s, low 70s. I'd have to look at that. But I remember it was a really warm, beautiful day until those storms started to fire. and it quickly changed, which is not uncommon, right? For us to have like a warm, sunny day, breezy conditions ahead of potential severe weather. We often think of like thunderstorms, severe weather as like it's going to be like a rainy day. It's not always. Sometimes they can happen really quickly, and oftentimes some of your worst severe weather days, there is a lot of sun early in the day. And so it was a tricky day because we were, I remember we cleared up, which was a big question mark on May 7th, was if we could see some sun, that would lead to more potent storms. And then we did see the sun. And I remember filming a little video in my backyard with my daughter where you could actually see the shear in the clouds. So you could see the low level clouds were moving from southeast to north, or from southeast to northeast. And then the upper level clouds were more just straight out of the west. Which is kind of indicative of low-level turning. And then we also had a little bit of humidity, and I was like, man, this isn't good. It was kind of that weird feeling right before the storms were starting to fire. All right. But yeah, tomorrow should be pretty nice overall. Let's look ahead just really quickly, and we will. I can highlight a few graphics about last year in a moment if you guys want. Joanne, have a nice day. Yeah, it was a nice day there in Kalamazoo. Jesse, hello. Jesse, my man in the Berg. Ken, hello. Ken in Kalamazoo. Ken, we got Kenny, a bunch of Kens. Good evening, Will. Hopefully you have a wonderful night as well. Carol, hello. Carla, hello. And sorry I'm a little late on the Facebook Live. Craig says he talked to Keith today. That's awesome. Yeah, Keith was out at Celery Flats. They did a commemorative 1 year later thing for the city of Portage. Sounds like they received a $100,000 donation to do some replanting of the forested areas that were pretty much decimated. There was a few pockets hit really hard. Just drive along like Romance Road Parkway in Portage, drive along portions of Center, over by the Gordon Neck Lake State Game area. That's a really crazy area near Greenspire Apartments. So and people are like, when are they going to clean it up? And I get that concern, but it's also like, I don't really know how much they could do. And it's literally just like huge mature trees, just like pickup sticks, like that's going to take a long time. And I don't know. I'm not a forestry expert, so I don't even know if it's like, you don't clean it up or what, but I'm assuming some of this money will help to hopefully replant some of the thousands of trees that were lost area-wide. All right. Really quickly. But I'm glad, Craig, you got to bump into Keith. He's going to have his story recapping that event tonight at 10 and 11. So you guys can check that out. So future temperatures tomorrow night. This is not tonight through tomorrow. This is tomorrow night, Thursday night, into early Friday morning. This is a look at temperatures for Friday at 7 a.m. Friday morning, since this past weekend, had my eye for possible frost because we have clear skies. Calm, but very light northeasterly winds, and just a cooler air mass in play. And with that, those are all things we kind of look for possible frosty nights. The temperatures, I think, will be there where we could have some pretty widespread frost. I would be surprised, given the trends that I've seen, if we don't see a frost advisory. To me, this is not a freeze situation. It is possible some locations could dip down to about freezing. But I don't necessarily think unless that changes, unless things trend down maybe 2 more degrees, I don't foresee them issuing a freeze warning or a freeze watch. I think it is primarily a frost concern. A freeze would be more concerning for growers and farmers and things and people that have some of their crops already in the ground, some early season, although most of the planting is not underway just yet. But anyways, so I think frost is likely though. So if you got an early jump on your planting, there's a lot of flowers that handle cold just fine. But if you've planted anything that is cold sensitive, you may want to cover it up tomorrow night. You also, I always think of like the flower pots that people put out of their like garage or on their back patio or whatever. If you've got an early jump on that and you have some stuff that's cold sensitive, might be a good idea to either cover those or just bring them into the garage or whatever you may need to do. The general rule in Michigan, and it works pretty darn well based on climatology, is Mother's Day weekend is kind of the old wives' tale of like when you're in the clear, it's not always perfect. We've certainly seen freezes well past Mother's Day, and it can happen. The good news is I don't necessarily see another frost or freeze in the next 7 to 10 days beyond Friday. So I think we're looking pretty good in that department. It's not to say it's impossible, because one really strong cold snap later in the month with all the right conditions, you can definitely flirt with that freezing line. But as we get later and later in the month, it gets harder and harder for us to get that cold. So anyways, gorgeous stretch of weather. Take advantage. I would imagine those car washes were pretty slammed today, and I think they'll probably be pretty busy tomorrow because we don't have a lot of rain in the forecast and just some spectacular weather to look forward to. It will be a little warmer next week. We'll make a run at about 80 for Monday. And just a quick reminder, it is Mother's Day on Sunday. So we try to deliver every year, moms. And this year, I think we did mid-70s and some sun for Mother's Day. Maybe you're going to be doing a little planting with mom this weekend. And then some scattered shower and storm chances return for Tuesday and Wednesday of next week. I don't see anything severe with that right now, but that is our next chance of some scattered showers and thunderstorms. So that's pretty much it. Really quickly, if you guys want, for anyone that wants to hang out for a few more minutes before I go pester Keith Thompson, who I said he could come and say hi, but guess he's too cool for us tonight, you guys. No, I'm just kidding. He's just busy. He's trying to finish his story. So he probably shouldn't, because he'd be distracted. But these were the tornadoes last year. We had 2 EF1s, 2 EF2s. I will note both of those EF2s were very high-end EF2s, so they were right on the cusp of an EF3. Specifically, the Portage tornado was as strong of an EF2 as you can get. So the first one, as you might imagine, was that one that touched down near Dowagiac and then eventually lifted a little south of Decatur. The next tornado to touch down was in the Centerville area, went through eventually kind of like the Colon area as well, clipping a lot of different townships as well. And then what's interesting, the connection here, and this can happen, the same parent thunderstorm that produced this first initial tornado. So the same parent thunderstorm, this tornado lifted, but then the same rotating thunderstorm produced the secondary tornado. That's something maybe not a lot of people maybe realize about May 7th. The same is actually true of this tornado. So this tornado touched down in Cass County. The same supercell was rotating all the way through Van Buren County as it pushed through or pushed into Kalamazoo County. It still had tornado warnings throughout its entire life cycle, even though for a brief period it wasn't producing that tornado. But the same mesocyclone, as we call it, rotating updraft, produced the tornado in Portage, initially touching down in Texas Township, going right through the heart of Portage, and then lifting near Pavilion Township, technically. That is not Vicksburg. Sorry, I didn't mean to click to that graphic, and I haven't updated it. Oh, man, did I take all these out? That's unfortunate. Silly Will. Tricks are for kids. All right. Well, here's just really quickly. I can go through this for those that want to play along. But I'm pretty much done, by the way, with talking about the forecast. So I'm sorry if you're tuning in and like, I thought you were going to talk about the weather. Also, I know that's not Vicksburg, as we established. I just didn't mean to show that graphic. So just a really quick look at the Portage EF2, which had max sustained winds of 135 miles an hour. Miraculously, despite this tornado touched down in a major metropolitan area, this did not cause any serious injuries or fatalities, which is an insane thing looking back, just given the timing, which was, I won't say peak rush hour, but this was like from 5:55 to I think like 6:18. Something around for 5:55 is when it touched down. So maybe 6:15, I think, is when it lifted. I'm not positive on those numbers off the top of my head, but I know it touched down at 5:55. The first tornado warning, by the way, for Portage was at 5:38 p.m. So there was like 17 minutes lead time, which is really good for a tornado. So the fact that there was about 17 minutes for people to get to their shelter, get to their safe place. But there was arguably even better lead time than that, because Keith and Colin were tracking the storm as it was producing the tornado in Cass County. And what's crazy, and I still have this screenshot, and this is, I talk about this in some weather talks I do for like adult groups, like Rotary groups and things like that. I have a screenshot of Colin and Keith's coverage from that night. They put a track, you know, as we're tracking storms, we put those little storm tracks on that show the different locations and the time. So it was like 5:15 as that tornado or that storm in Cass County was producing the tornado. Colin threw a track on that storm, extended it all the way into Kalamazoo County. And on that screenshot, it says Portage 5:55 p.m. So that was over 30 minutes ahead of time, about 40 minutes to be specific. They nailed it literally to the minute that the tornado would touch down in Portage, which it's not always going to be that perfect, but the fact that we have that to say is like remarkable, and something that I'm really, really proud of those guys for. And it's just really, I think, speaks to the fact that there was so much lead time. I think people were aware that this tornado possible storm was moving in. The other thing that I will credit is right when this tornado passed 131 and Center, it was picked up by a storm chaser by the name of Blake Naftel. And for some reason, where's my little pointer? Okay. So as this tornado touched down, this was, sir, you can't be in here.
Okay.
Distracting me with sweets.
Come on.
Come say hi to the people.
Hello.
Look what I finally figured out. I figured out a way to adjust my camera height so my head isn't cut off. The man, the myth, the legend.
Oh, you're very kind.
Nice of you to show up.
A cupcake. You want one? Seriously?
I'll go get one in a minute.
Okay,
I forgot those were in there.
Yeah.
Yep.
Hey, thanks. Thanks very much.
Happy Mother's Day, Keith.
Thank
We
you
got
very
cupcakes.
much. I got cupcake. And
Thanks, Janine.
watch at 10 and 11.
Yeah, Keith.
Right?
Keith is turning a story today, you guys, which I am very excited to see.
Oh, thanks, but don't get too much. But you know what? It's on the 1-year anniversary in Portage of the tornado. I'll move up a little bit.
Yeah.
But one of the big stories is that today it was announced that there's $100,000 coming Portage's way, $50,000 from consumers, which the city was sort of knew about. But what they were surprised by was Portage Parks Foundation is kicking in a match.
Sweet.
So it's going to be $100,000 that's going to go toward trying to reforest the city because, you know, the tree damage was incredible.
Yeah.
I think the mayor said that Portage lost 48,000 trees.
Yeah, that's crazy.
That's a lot of tree canopy. So anyway, you'll see that story at 10 and 11.
Yeah, I bet between the 4 tornadoes, I bet there was like 100,000 trees across our area, probably.
And you know what? Not to take over here a little bit, but
it's fine.
I think one thing that you forget is that, you know, a tree canopy takes decades to replace.
It's sad, yeah.
And it's very difficult. Like behind Celery Flats, the trees that are down, she said, the mayor was like, this is a swamp. We can't even get in there.
Yeah.
To get rid of the trees that are there. So it's really a 2-step process of getting rid of the trees that are down.
Yeah.
And then trying to replant trees, which, you know, you have to watch out for the utilities. Somebody has to water them. Somebody has to take care of them. Yeah. And so it's a very involved process.
Well, I was saying that earlier. I was like, I've seen comments of people like, why, you know, when are they going to clean it up? And it's like, I get it, but also it's not, I can't imagine that's a huge task. And it's like, literally like pickup sticks of, you know, 50-year-old mature oaks, you know, and trees.
And expensive.
So,
very expensive, and has to come after the human needs are taken care of too. And that's something that the president of the Portage Parks Foundation said. It's like, look, we didn't really start this fundraising campaign until after there were more important human needs that had to be taken care of. So, it's a nice, like some of these areas, it's like, it's an eyesore, but well, hopefully it'll be back one day. But as the mayor said, it's going to take decades.
Yeah, it will.
Anyway, that's tonight, 10 and 11.
Tonight, 10 and 11. What a tease.
All right.
I'll see you in a minute, buddy.
Yeah, bye.
All right. What a pleasant surprise. I was hoping he would stop by. So anyways, I'll wrap this up, but you can, I don't know if we're airing this again, but I did do a pretty detailed little timeline of this tornado. And what I was getting at before I was so rudely interrupted, just kidding, was in Texas Township, this tornado touched down. And right as it was crossing 131 and Center, Blake Naftel, a storm chaser and West Michigan native, he spotted that tornado crossing the highway. And we got a report of that relayed through the National Weather Service. The crazy thing, like, just to tell my story of things, and then I'm going to be done. But so Blake's a friend of mine. He knows all of us, but I've gotten to know Blake like in the last few years. And he's done a lot of really good work too on the Kalamazoo tornado. If you ever want to look up a lot of interesting just history on that, he has a whole website that I think was picked up by the Kalamazoo Public Library. But if you look up like Kalamazoo tornado 1980 on Google, his website's like one of the first things that pops up. Highly recommend. But anyways, so Blake calls me, and it's like one of those moments I'll never forget. So I, by some weird thing, was actually at home, and I do live in Portage, so this was not far from my house. But I was at home, and it just so happened I had that week off. We had I had some time off, and then we were expecting our daughter. It was just this like weird thing. And I had our daughter with me. So, but I was watching everything at home, posting updates, relaying stuff that I could to like Colin and Keith who were at the station. So it was weird. I was like, I was not working, but kind of still working. So Blake gives me a call, and he's like, large tornado crossing 131 at Center. I'm like, hey, Blake, what's up? Are you chasing? That's what he says. Large tornado crossing 131 at Center. So that's very rare that we get a spotter confirmed tornado. So I'm like, gulp. And I start running in, but here, and he tells me I'm reporting that to the National Weather Service right now. So meanwhile, he sends in a report to the National Weather Service, literally like that moment. And by the time I run inside to go call Colin, who is off the air, well, he's on the air, but off camera, Keith is there, Colin's there. I'm going to call Colin to relay that. By the time I'm picking up the phone, my TV was on, and I hear Colin come over the air. Keith, we just got a confirmed report of a tornado at 131 at Center. So in a matter of about 30 seconds to a minute, Blake's report was relayed not only to me, who then posted that out, but then also was relayed to all the meteorologists, not just us either. Any on-air meteorologist, National Weather Service, emergency manager was able to get that report, which is incredibly crucial, because not that every tornado warning you should take seriously, but there's that added level of like, holy smokes, when we can say there's a tornado on the ground, like right now, moving into Portage, there's a whole different level of, I think, severity with that. And I think people take it a lot more seriously. You would certainly hope. But like I said, you should take every tornado warning seriously. But I do think that added a layer of severity to the situation, that I'm not saying that necessarily, it's hard to say, like, did that save lives? I don't know. But just that messaging was incredibly important. And so, but it also speaks to how far we've come, that, we do have people that are trained spotters that are giving instant reports to the National Weather Service, and then they're able to relay that to media partners, to emergency managers in a matter of seconds. It's really amazing when you think about it. That technology didn't really exist like 15, 20 years ago. It's existed for the last, I would say, about maybe 10 to 15, but just to be that quick was pretty remarkable that day. And I do think that was a really amazing, just my personal experience with that. And that's a moment I'll never forget for sure. And then the other super eerie thing about that was I hear Colin say that on TV, and then like 30 seconds later, my power goes out. So it's just like that, knowing, holy smokes, that's because there's a tornado ripping through where I live right now. Now, fortunately, tornado did not pass too close to where I lived. We were not in the path, but anytime there's a tornado hitting your hometown is a very weird thing. And unfortunately, obviously, there were a lot of people that weren't so lucky. So definitely thinking of them tonight, and I'm sure a lot of people are remembering that day. And it's a hard one for a lot of folks, and very traumatizing as well for a lot of folks, and even kids as well that live still with kind of that trauma and anxiety over severe thunderstorms and tornadoes. So thinking of you, and we're going to keep you updated always. And fortunately, no severe weather in the forecast tonight, so we are very happy about that. But really, really quick, just because I'm a big nerd about this stuff. So this is the thing. I posted this on my social media. So if you want to look at like a detailed timeline, just go to my Facebook. But this is Blake's photo. I know it's kind of small on your devices, but if you look right there, that's the funnel. And, if you took a quick glance at that picture and you didn't know that was a tornado, maybe 50% of people would say, oh man, that's a tornado. But like to the untrained eye, quick glance at that, you might not see a tornado. And that's also a picture. Our eyes, the contrast to the naked eye might not have been that great. But I also just use that as an example, and that is Blake's photo that he captured on Westnedge. That's looking south, right near the Target. He's approaching the light near Target and like Home Depot right there. So it was crossing just south of there, near like MVP Pets and that one auto parts store that is no longer, I think it's Campbell, but don't quote me on that. So yeah, just I use that as an example because I think, and I talk about this in weather talks as well, like I think we have like a Hollywood representation of tornadoes in our brain that like it's going to be this just like ominous funnel ripping down your neighborhood, right? But a lot of times, especially in Michigan, they're not really clear cut, like crystal clear funnels. They might be even rain wrapped, so you can't really see it. And so that's why like it's really imperative to just take warning seriously and just realize like it takes sometimes a very trained eye to even spot the thing and to know what's going on. So obviously at this point as well, there was debris being lofted at really high in the sky. There were transformers blowing up. So Blake was able to relay all that information as well. But yeah, I know it is sad, Joanne. MVP Pets closed for good after that. And I believe, I could be totally wrong on that, but I think it was Campbell. Like, I think I had never been there personally, but I think there was either an auto repair shop or like an auto parts store, like right across the street from MVP Pets that also never opened. So it's just like so sad. Like people's lives literally like were upended that day, or livelihoods in many ways. So yeah, it's just a day I hold really close to my heart, and those people that were affected by it, many of whom I've talked to over the years. Like your stories mean a lot to me, and we appreciate. I really appreciate the work that Colin and Keith did that night, because I think it really did save a lot of people. So, anyways, I'm gonna wrap this up before I get too sentimental and sad and happy at the same time. But thank you guys for watching, and yeah, it is Campbell's. Thanks, Keith and Melissa. We'll have more at 10. So we'll have some more tornado anniversary stuff. So crazy, like it's been a crazy news day. We got the Pope, we got the Sure trial, we got tornado stuff. And there was a couple other kind of big stories that broke today. So busy newscast coming up at 10, 11, but we appreciate you guys. Thanks for sticking with us and listening to me ramble as always. All right, bye.